Hey everyone, welcome to Mom Talks. We are continuing our summer series. I'm Laura. We are going to talk about all the great movies that are coming out this summer and the TV your kids are probably watching maybe a little more often now that they're not in school, but the violence that they're seeing and how we can help them and make sure that they just continue to mature and we do what's right for them. So I am with Dr. Spiegel, a children's psychiatrist here at St. Louis Children's Hospital. So I think what would be helpful is we kind of start at the beginning. So before we even go to the movie theater, before we even turn on Netflix, what should we be looking for as parents to see if a movie is appropriate for our kids?
Okay, so the first thing that we need to talk about is the rating of the movie, right? We can pretty much ignore that.
Okay.
All right.
Done.
As we've talked about before, you know that most movies tend to be rated PG-13 these days, and that's to capture a big audience, adults and children alike. Very few on the corners are rated G or R.
Okay.
A lot of times, rated R movies, you can trust that that's not something to go
Not
see.
appropriate. That's a hard and fast no for our littles or even our young teens, maybe.
Most of the time, and that it's clear that that's true. We're even getting kind of superhero movies now that are rated R. Not always. The most adult movies are rated R. Very adult movies are rated PG-13. And so wanting to know exactly what goes on violence-wise, sex, profanity, drug use, all those things, you have to look for other sources. And one that I tend to use myself as a father is called commonsensemedia.org. My kids are sort of trained to know that that's where I look, so sometimes they look first.
Yeah, there you go.
Figure out what's in the movie, what actually is in there, and is it okay for kids. And sometimes, we look there and we find out, yeah, this will be okay, and sometimes it's sorry guys,
This might not work.
we're not gonna do that. And so, that third party source, kind of finding out exactly what's in the movie is the best because every kid's unique, and every age is different for kids of what they can handle, and so you as a parent, you really have to tailor it for that.
So, okay, I'm going to have you say that website one more time.
It's just Common Sense Media, all run together, .org.
Okay.
O-R-G.
Extra resource for parents out there. And if you have any questions, let us know, because my experience isn't too deep in this. So if you have any specific questions, let us know, and we'll help you out as best we can. So we find out that a movie is like, okay, I think this is going to be a good fit for us, whether it's a new movie, old movie, whatever. We think, okay, this is going to be a good one. Is there any conversation that we should have before we actually go to the movie theater with our kids?
I guess I think you can have a conversation with kids depending upon their age. Okay. The younger they are, the more you want to emphasize kind of this is pretend, these people are actors, they're not harmed, if there's something like that. And then try to meet them where they are about what questions they have about it, what do they think about what they saw afterwards. And I mean, the older kids get, the more you can kind of say, what do you think would be appropriate for you? Do you think this is going to be something that's okay for you? Yeah. And like I said, every kid's different. Some kids are very scared by things that they see, and other kids seem to be like, they can watch whatever.
Yeah.
And we don't know what that really necessarily is going to equate to, except for that we do know that the more violence and aggression that we see, the more likely they are to act those things out or be aggressive, maybe even many years later on. And so limiting that is still very important.
So that's a great question of like, how do you keep it from coming home? We went and saw Batman and he fought the bad guys. Oh, we have a question. Maybe it folds into this.
Yeah, one of our viewers is asking, how do they keep track of what their teen is watching at a friend's house?
That's tough.
You don't. I mean, I think that's the real answer. I hate to be I hate to give up on something like this, but I think that at a certain point when you are moving to going to school or going to a friend's house, you know that you're not going to be able to keep them from watching certain things. And you have to be able to have those conversations about what did you see, what do you think about this, are they making decisions about what's appropriate for themselves. The younger they get, the more you really should have a relationship with the other parents. Yeah. Parental supervision should be happening for young children whether or not it's you.
Yeah.
And so, asking the family, well, what sorts of games do they play? What
Yeah.
sorts of
What do you guys
things do
think
you guys
even
watch?
do tonight? Yeah.
If you have a group of kids that are and a group of parents that kind of know each other, you can minimize the peer pressure effect if you say, can we all kind of get on the same page about this when they're little, and as
I
they
think
grow, you can kind of just all kind of, it's not just our house has these roles.
I think that it would be the same for scary movies too, because I remember, I mean, scary movies still super scare me, but I would be at a friend's house and be like, oh, we're gonna watch a scary movie, and I'd be like, awesome, and I would have nightmares for weeks, and my parents were like, well, this was a disaster. So I would think violence and scary levels, kind of same thing, just having those conversations.
They're kind of two different things.
Yeah.
If you think about like the impulsive, hyperactive kids that maybe are going to act things out and maybe accidentally hurt somebody, that's something that you need to work with kids on. But if you have more of an anxious, fearful kid, you're wanting to make sure you don't overwhelm them, and then they have nightmares, and trouble sleeping, and things like that.
I have one of each of those, so there you go.
So I mean,
That's
they're both,
win-win.
they both can be great qualities. If you work on them in one way or the other, whether you're full of energy or you're a sensitive kind of a soul, but it speaks a little bit to like, who is my child? How old are they? What is their personality like? And does this look like a good idea or not? The younger they are, as with all parenting, it's on you. You got to figure out that and really be in charge of it. The older they are, it's sort of they're taking the reins and deciding on their own. Because what you want is an adult that chooses the correct kinds of things for themselves and makes up their minds about morals and things like that.
Yeah, we have a question.
So another one of our viewers is saying that her son is 10 years old and wants to know how much violence is too much.
Is there a weighted scale?
No.
We do a little check mark.
I mean,
that would be easy.
I think honestly, you want to aim for as little as possible within reason. You really want to make sure that that's not all the things they're doing. That's not all of the video games they're playing or the movies they're watching. There certainly are tons of other things. So rather than making a limit, maybe coming up with, hey, I found this cool adventure video game where you solve puzzles and whatever. And, hey, we're gonna play it together.
Yeah.
And maybe they really like that and they have fun mom and son time or dad and daughter time playing the adventure video game. And it sort of supplants that violent shooting game or Fortnite. It's hard to compete against Fortnite these days, but if you do find something that you're doing together on the screen and enjoying that's not violent, then maybe that'll edge that out. The other thing to remember is just limiting screens in general. So limiting TV, phones, tablets, all those things to a certain amount in your household is going to then encourage the kids to go out and play, go outside, do sports, interacting with one another, which is a very important part of development. So all the things that you're not doing when you're watching TV are important to encourage.
Push those a little bit too. So what do we do? So we'll jump back to the question I had, because I've run into this with some of my kids, is we go and we see the Incredibles movie and Mr. Incredible fought the bad guys and now I'm Mr. Incredible and I'm going to fight you. Like, how do you kind of, not squash that, but how do you try and break that up? Because it's like, that's great, he's the good guy, we want to be the good guy, but please don't hurt your brother.
Right.
Not going to work here.
So the two things there are, one is that's normal.
Oh, thank God.
Normal
we
kid
get a
behavior.
lot of that in our house.
Pretending is wonderful. Coming up with stories to act out is great. It's good for the growth of their minds, and sometimes pretending it includes violence, guns, fighting, things like that, especially if that's what you just watched.
Yeah.
It's kind of their way of processing it. They're not going to have a book club and sit down and talk about it, right? They're kind
That would be hilarious. It would be adorable.
They're thinking it through. They're acting it out,
Yeah.
That's pretty normal. In fact, playing at aggressive kind of themes and violence can sometimes show decrease in violence, actual aggressive behaviors. So that's important. The difference is like, who are they playing with, and is that person actually getting hurt?
Brother on brother violence is usually our situation at home. But yeah, so you kind of, okay, just pretend punch or pretend kick.
Right.
Is that okay?
So those are, I mean, if we can pretend punch and kick and shoot and things like
Yeah.
that, that's probably pretty normal and maybe even healthy. If anybody's getting hurt, then obviously that's not pretend anymore.
Right.
And we need to teach the line there. And then another layer on top of that is like, if there's always punching, kicking, killing, shooting as a part of pretend, can you as a parent get in there and pretend with them or talk to them about it, one or the other, about how can we change this story? Who's the bad guy? Why is he bad?
Yeah.
Who's the good guy? What makes him good? Is there anything else the good guy can do
Yeah.
other than kill this guy?
How can we detain the situation?
Can we help the bad guy to become a good
Yeah.
guy? Can we come up with a different story other than that? So coming up with maybe differing kinds of things than what they see and or what they have seen. And that just kind of folds back to, you do want to choose movies where that happens. You want to choose TV shows where that happens, where it's not always necessarily a happy ending because that isn't possible, but showing them that there's all these alternatives to think about it, and their pretend can be rich and have all kinds of things to it.
You think about violence and there's like graphics level, like was this a slap? Was it kind of a funny violence, like in a cartoon, or was it more on that Deadpool kind of end of the thing? So how does the different scale of violence, like how do you know what's right and wrong, and explaining right and wrong, I guess, when it comes to that?
I think funny violence is actually probably the trickiest for me.
Really?
Because what I think about violence on screen is what are the consequences of violence? What are the real consequences of the violent act that they're depicting?
Yeah.
And if I'm a cartoon character that throws somebody off of a cliff and it causes them to like rub their head afterwards, like you really have to understand that that's pretend to get the joke, I guess, there. And then on the other end of the spectrum, you could have something that's kind of horrific, but it's real. And that's really what violence does if it unsettles you. And so that's a very fine line. Where a good example of the graphic violence that seems pretty real, because we just celebrated the anniversary of D-Day with Saving Private Ryan. There's this very gory war violence, but is it bad or good to see that war is horrific? Right?
It sticks with you.
Right. And so it depends on the team. Obviously that's more of a team
It
kind
almost
of a
seems
question.
like it gets more and more complicated as they get older, because they are going into that adulthood of like, okay, you understand this now, versus little kids where we're not planning to expose them to that at all.
Yeah, and I think the key is watch it with them, know what they're going to watch. Maybe you've seen it before, you know exactly what it is, and then talk to them afterwards about it. How does it fit with, how do you see that? How do you see how that they depicted the violence in this? How would you think they should depict it otherwise? Or if you're thinking about the characters, could they have handled this otherwise? If you're supervising it to that level, then you're probably good if you know your kids and kind of what they can handle.
So summer movie season is upon us, so don't not go to the movies, but do your homework. Go to the movies. It's air conditioned. There are snacks there. It's done. But know before you go, and have those conversations before and after.
That's right.
Right? If I've missed anything, let me know. By all means, we look forward to having you guys next week. We're going to continue our summer series. We're going to talk about bugs, all kinds of summer bugs that are a menace. Mosquito bites, ticks, spider bites, how can we prevent them, treat them, and what to know before you go camping. So thank you guys so much for joining us. Have a great summer, and we'll talk to you next week.